The bankruptcy notice arrived on a Tuesday, the kind of Tuesday that felt like any other until it wasn't. Elena Williams stood in her kitchen, 12 years of memories pressed into these walls, holding an envelope that would try to erase everything she had fought for. Chapter 7. Personal Bankruptcy. Her ex-husband Marcus, now a tech billionaire, claiming he couldn't afford the $5,000 a month he owed for their daughter's support. $5,000. That's what the court had ordered. $5,000 for a child he saw twice a month, for a child he had promised to protect, for a child whose private school tuition alone cost $30,000 a year. And now, a man worth over $2 billion was claiming poverty, was claiming he couldn't pay, was claiming his assets were tied up in corporate structures. Elena Williams was 44 years old, a black single mother who worked as an internal auditor, who had raised their daughter Jasmine mostly alone, who had kept receipts, who had documented everything, who had believed that if she just followed the rules, just did her job, just kept her head down, she would be safe. But safety was a luxury she could no longer afford. The bankruptcy petition said Marcus had insufficient liquid assets. It said his wealth was locked in equity holdings. It said he was restructuring his financial obligations. But Elena knew something Marcus didn't want the court to know. Something written in LLC registration documents, something captured in SWIFT transfer codes, something preserved in private jet ownership records that proved he was lying, in writing, to a federal court. This was not just about child support. This was about whether a mother's documentation, her audit skills, her 12 years of quiet observation could stand against a billionaire's desire to rewrite his obligations. If stories about ordinary people standing their ground still matter to you, take a second to like this video and subscribe. Because what happened next was not about money. It was about whether the truth could survive when power decided to hide behind corporate veils. Section 2. The past Elena Williams had not always been fighting alone. 12 years ago, when she first met Marcus at a tech conference in Atlanta, she had been younger, but no less sharp. She was a senior auditor then, working for a mid-sized accounting firm. The kind of woman who could spot a discrepancy in a ledger from across the room, who remembered numbers the way other people remembered faces, who believed that integrity was not negotiable. Marcus was different then. Or maybe she just saw what she wanted to see. He was ambitious, charming, a software engineer with big ideas about disrupting the logistics industry. He didn't have money yet, but he had vision, or so he said. He courted her with late-night conversations about algorithms, with dreams of building something that mattered, with promises that they would rise together. They married in a small ceremony, just family and close friends. Elena's mother, God rest her soul, had warned her. Baby girl, that man got hunger in his eyes, not the good kind, the kind that ain't never satisfied. But Elena was in love, or what she thought was love, and she believed she could be the grounding force, the moral compass, the one who kept him honest. Jasmine was born 2 years later, a beautiful baby girl with Elena's eyes and Marcus' stubborn chin. For the first few years, things were good. Marcus' startup began to gain traction, got their first round of funding, moved from their small apartment to a house in the suburbs. Elena kept working, kept auditing, kept bringing home her paycheck, because she knew, even then, that depending on a man's money was dangerous. But as Marcus' company grew, as the funding rounds got bigger, as his net worth climbed into the millions, then tens of millions, then hundreds of millions, something changed. He started working later, traveling more, missing Jasmine's recitals, missing parent-teacher conferences, missing dinners. When Elena brought it up, he would say, "Baby, I'm building our future. I'm building Jasmine's inheritance. You gotta understand the grind." But Elena understood something Marcus didn't want to hear. She understood that building a future didn't require abandoning the present. She understood that inheritance meant nothing if a child grew up without a father. She understood that the man she married was being replaced by the man he was becoming. The divorce came 3 years ago, not with a bang, but with a slow erosion. Marcus filed first, citing irreconcilable differences. He offered a settlement, generous on paper, but Elena's auditor mind saw the traps. The assets were structured in ways that made them hard to value, hard to divide, hard to enforce. She hired a lawyer, a good one, but even good lawyers got tired when fighting against Billionaire resources. The court ordered $5,000 a month in child support. It ordered joint legal custody, with Jasmine primarily residing with Elena. It ordered Marcus to maintain health insurance, to pay for private school, to contribute to college savings. On paper, it looked fair. But paper was not reality. Marcus paid for 6 months, on time, without complaint. Then the payments got late. Then they got altogether. When Elena's lawyer sent a demand letter, Marcus' lawyers responded with excuses, cash flow issues, asset restructuring, temporary liquidity constraints. Elena tried to reason with him. She called, left messages, sent emails. Marcus, this is Jasmine's tuition. This is her orthodontist. This is her future. He would call back, sometimes, with smooth words. Elena, baby, you know I got her covered. Just moving money around for tax purposes. You know how it is, you're an auditor. You understand corporate structures. But Elena understood something else. She understood that corporate structures could be used to hide, as well as to build. She understood that a man who claimed poverty, while buying a new penthouse, while flying on a private jet, while posting luxury vacations on social media, was not having cash flow problems. He was having conscience problems, and she was about to audit his conscience, whether he liked it or not. Stories like this are why this channel exists. For the people who kept receipts when power expected them to disappear. If you believe in those people, like this video and subscribe. Because Elena was just getting started. The audit notebook was old, leather-bound, worn at the edges from years of use. It did not belong to her current job. It belonged to her first year as a junior auditor, the year she learned that numbers told stories if you knew how to listen. Her mentor, a grizzled old CPA named Mr. Henderson, had given it to her on her first day. Miss Elena, you gonna need this, not for the numbers, but for the questions. Every discrepancy, every anomaly, everything that don't add up, you write it down, you date it, you sign it, and you keep it. Because one day, somebody's to say you made a mistake. And this book, gonna prove you didn't. Elena had kept every notebooks since then. 12 years of audits, 12 years of discrepancies found, 12 years of questions asked, but this one, this old leather-bound book from her first year, was special, because on the inside cover, in her mother's handwriting, were 3 words. Truth got weight. Her mother had written it there, the week before she passed, when Elena was still married to Marcus, still believing things would get better, still hoping love would be enough. Baby girl, you always been the one who see what others miss. You always been the one who ask the hard questions. Don't stop now. Truth got weight. It might take time to lift, but it always rise. Elena kept the notebook on her desk, right next to her computer, right next to the stack of unpaid child support notices, right next to Jasmine's school tuition bills. Sometimes, late at night, when the worry sat heavy in her chest, she would open it, run her fingers over her mother's handwriting, feel the weight of those 3 words. The notebook was proof. Proof that black women had asked hard questions before, had followed the money before, had refused to be silenced before. It was proof that auditing was not just a job, it was a calling. It was passed down like wisdom, like recipes, like the knowledge that numbers did not lie, even when people did. Elena had a saying, something she told Jasmine when she was small and asked why mommy always checked the receipts, why mommy always kept the paperwork, why mommy always asked questions when other people just accepted answers. She would sit her down, look her in the eyes, and say, baby, numbers don't lie, people lie. But numbers always tell the truth. You just gotta know how to read them. It was not a proud statement. It was a survival statement. A statement born from watching her mother get cheated by landlords, from watching her best friend get denied promotions, from watching good people lose everything because they trusted words instead of documentation. The notebook, the receipts, the bank statements, the LLC registration documents, the SWIFT codes, these were not just objects. They were a language Elena had learned to speak fluently, the only language that power understood, and she would need that language soon, because outside her door, Marcus was hiding behind corporate veils, hiding behind bankruptcy petitions, hiding behind the kind of complex financial structures that most people couldn't understand. But Elena Williams understood. She understood shell companies. She understood offshore transfers. She understood the difference between illiquid assets and hidden assets. She understood that a billionaire who claimed he couldn't pay $5,000 a month was not broke. He was banking on her being too tired, too poor, too powerless to follow the money. But Elena Carter knew something Marcus didn't. She knew that paper outlasts lies. She knew that documentation outlasts deception. She knew that a mother's love, when written down, when dated, when audited, becomes something no corporate structure can hide. If this kind of quiet courage means something to you, support the channel with a like and subscribe. Because Elena was about to show them all what happens when you audit a billionaire, when you follow the money, when you keep asking questions. Marcus Williams did not hate Elena. That would have required seeing her as an equal, as a threat, as someone whose opinion mattered. Marcus Williams saw Elena as an obstacle, a line item, a problem to be solved through legal engineering. Marcus was 47 now, worth approximately $2.3 billion, according to Forbes. The founder and CEO of Logitech Solutions, a logistics software company that had gone public 3 years ago, making him one of the youngest black tech billionaires in America. He had remarried to a woman half his age, a former influencer with perfect teeth and perfect posture, who posted pictures of their Malibu mansion on Instagram, who never mentioned Jasmine, who never mentioned child support, who never mentioned the bankruptcy petition. When Elena's lawyer sent the first demand letter for unpaid child support, Marcus did not call Elena. He did not try to explain. He did not try to negotiate. He called his attorney, a man named Richard Blackwood, who charged $1,500 an hour, who specialized in asset protection and high net worth divorce litigation. Richard Blackwood's strategy was simple. First, create the appearance of financial distress. Second, file for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, claiming insufficient liquid assets. Third, use the automatic stay provision to freeze all collection efforts. Fourth, wear Elena down through legal attrition until she accepted a reduced settlement or gave up entirely. Marcus approved the strategy with a single email. Do whatever it takes. I'm not paying $5,000 a month when I'm restructuring. Elena will understand eventually. She's an auditor. She knows how business works. But Marcus was wrong. Elena did know how business worked. That was the problem. The bankruptcy petition was filed on March 15th, 2 days after Jasmine's 13th birthday, 2 days after Elena had borrowed money from her sister to pay the private school tuition, 2 days after Marcus had posted a picture on Instagram, standing next to his new Gulfstream G650, with the caption, "Blessed. New bird for the fleet. God is good." Elena saw the picture. She showed it to her lawyer. Her lawyer sighed, rubbed his temples, and said, "Miss Williams, I know this looks bad, but the bankruptcy court doesn't care about Instagram. They care about financial statements, and according to Marcus' filed documents, he has no liquid assets. His wealth is tied up in company stock, which is subject to trading restrictions. Has technically insolvent for cash flow purposes. Technically insolvent?" Elena's voice was quiet, dangerous. "He just bought a $65 million jet. How is that insolvent? Legally, if the jet is owned by a corporate entity, not personally, it doesn't count as a personal asset. And if he took out a loan against it, rather than paying cash, then it doesn't affect his liquidity position." Elena felt something cold settle in her chest. So, he can buy a jet, but he can't pay child support? Legally, yes. If the jet is a business expense, and if the child support is a personal obligation, and if he has declared bankruptcy, then yes. The bankruptcy court will prioritize his business creditors over personal obligations. Her lawyer was trying to be gentle, but the words cut anyway. Elena left the office, drove home in silence, and sat at her kitchen table with Jasmine's tuition bill, her orthodontist bill, the car repair estimate, and the bankruptcy notice. $5,000 a month. That's all it took to keep their daughter's life stable. $5,000 out of $2.3 billion. That was 0.0002% of his net worth, and he was claiming he couldn't afford it. That night, after Jasmine went to bed, Elena opened her old audit notebook. She turned to a fresh page, dated it, and wrote, "Subject, Marcus Williams. Issue, asset concealment through corporate structures. Question, where is the money?" She opened her laptop, began to search. She pulled up the bankruptcy petition, read every page, every schedule, every attachment. She cross-referenced with public records, with SEC filings, with corporate registration databases, and slowly, as she worked, something shifted. The anger, the despair, the feeling of being crushed began to transform into something else, something colder, something sharper. Marcus thought she would give up. He thought the bankruptcy would scare her. He thought the legal complexity would overwhelm her. He thought she was just a tired single mother, working a 9-to-5 job, too busy surviving to fight back. But he had made a mistake, a critical, fatal mistake. He had forgotten who she was. Elena Williams was an auditor, and auditors did not give up until the numbers added up. Before the next part, remember this. Every like tells YouTube that stories about dignity still deserve a place. Elena was about to prove that one mother's audit skills could pierce a billionaire's corporate veil. The letter came on certified mail, the kind that requires a signature, the kind that creates a record. Elena signed for it on April 12th, stood on the porch in the spring rain, felt the envelope heavy in her hand, and knew before she opened it that her life was about to get harder. She took it inside, sat at the kitchen table, used scissors to slice the top, and read. Inside were 2 documents. The first was a formal notice from Marcus' attorney, Richard Blackwood. It stated that due to the bankruptcy filing, all collection efforts were stayed, all court hearings were postponed, and any attempt to collect child support would be a violation of federal bankruptcy law. The second document was a settlement offer. Marcus was offering $500 a month, not $5,000, $500, 10% of what the court had ordered. The letter said, Mr. Williams is prepared to offer a modified support arrangement of $500 monthly, contingent upon Ms. Williams signing a full release of all past due obligations and agreeing not to pursue further legal action. This offer is made in good faith, considering Mr. Williams' current financial constraints, and will remain open for 30 days. After that, it will be withdrawn. 30 days, $500, and a full release, meaning she could never ask for more, never pursue the arrears, never hold him accountable. Elena felt something crack inside her chest. Not her heart, not exactly. Something older. Something that had been holding itself together for 3 years, for 12 years, for her whole life. The belief that if she just did everything right, just followed the rules, just documented everything, justice would prevail. $500. Our mortgage was $2,400. Jasmine's private school was $2,500 a month. The car payment was $400. Insurance, utilities, groceries, all of it added up to more than Elena made in a month, and Marcus was offering $500. But the arrears were growing. 3 months of unpaid support, $15,000. 4 months, $20,000. 5 months, $25,000. Every month he didn't pay, the debt grew, and with the bankruptcy stay in place, she couldn't garnish his wages, couldn't seize assets, couldn't do anything. She was powerless. Her phone rang. It was Jasmine's school, the admissions office. Miss Williams, we need to discuss Jasmine's tuition balance. Her account is now 60 days past due. We're going to have to place a hold on her records, and if the balance isn't paid within 30 days, we may have to consider withdrawal. Elena's throat closed. I understand. I'm working on it. Can you give me more time? I'm sorry. Miss Williams, we have policies. If you can't pay, maybe public school would be more feasible. More feasible. As if uprooting a 13-year-old in the middle of the school year. As if breaking her promises to her daughter. As if admitting defeat was just a matter of feasibility. She hung up, sat in silence, and felt the walls closing in. That evening, Jasmine came home from school, dropped her backpack, and sat at the table. Mom, can we talk? Elena tried to smile, tried to sound normal. What's up, baby? Jasmine looked down at her hands, fidgeted with her bracelet, the one Marcus had given her for her 12th birthday, before everything fell apart. Dad called me today. Elena's stomach dropped. What did he say? He said he's going through some financial problems. He said, maybe I should transfer to public school next year. He said, it would be easier on you. Elena felt tears burning but refused to let them fall. What did you say? Jasmine looked up, and for a moment she looked so much like Marcus, it hurt. I said, I don't want to leave my school. I said, I want to stay with you, but Mom, are we okay? Are we broke? The word hit like a physical blow. Broke. Her daughter was asking if they were broke, because of her father, because of his bankruptcy, because of his $65 million jet, because of his new wife, because of his financial constraints. Elena reached across the table, gripped Jasmine's hands, felt them trembling. Baby, listen to me. We are not broke. We are in a difficult situation. But we are not broke. Your father has made choices, and those choices have consequences. But I promise you, I will fix this. I will make it right. How Jasmine's voice was small, scared, has got lawyers, has got money, has got everything. Elena wanted to lie, wanted to say, it's going to be fine, wanted to promise hell come around, but she was an auditor, and auditors did not lie about the numbers. I don't know how yet, baby, but I'm going to find a way, because numbers don't lie, and your father has been lying to the court, and I'm going to prove it. That night, after Jasmine went to bed, Elena sat alone at the kitchen table with the audit notebook open before her. She opened her laptop, pulled up the bankruptcy petition again. She read every schedule, every asset declaration, every income statement. She cross-referenced with SEC filings, with corporate registrations, with property records. And slowly, patterns emerged. Marcus had declared no liquid assets over $10,000, but his company, Logitech Solutions, had just received a $40 million government contract. Marcus had declared monthly income insufficient to meet obligations, but his salary, according to SEC filings, was $800,000 a year. Marcus had declared no real property other than primary residence, but a property search showed a LLC registered in Delaware had purchased a $3 million condo in Miami 2 months ago. The same LLC was registered to the same address as Marcus' corporate headquarters. Coincidence? Elena didn't believe in coincidence. She believed in patterns, and this was a pattern. She opened a new page in her audit notebook, dated it, and wrote, Finding number 1, discrepancy between declared assets and actual holdings. Entity, Williams Holdings LLC, Delaware. Asset, Miami condo, $3 million. Purchase date, January 15th. Bankruptcy filing, March 15th. Time difference, 2 months. Conclusion, asset transfer, pre-bankruptcy, potential fraud. She printed the LLC registration. She printed the property deed. She printed the SEC filing showing Marcus' salary. She printed the government contract announcement. She created a folder, labeled it evidence, and she began to count 1 LLC, 1 condo, 1 government contract, 1 salary, 1 pattern. It was not enough, not yet, but it was a start. And Elena Williams was very good at following the money. If you believe the truth should have consequences, like this video and subscribe. Because Elena was just getting started. Elena did not sleep that night. She worked. She photographed every document, created digital backups on her laptop, and a USB drive she kept in her desk drawer. She made a list, not of what she had lost, but of what she needed to do. First, she needed a better lawyer. Her current attorney was good, but he was a family law specialist. This was no longer just family law. This was bankruptcy fraud. This was asset concealment. This was federal crime territory. But better lawyers cost money. Money she didn't have, so she made calls. At 7 a.m. she contacted the State Bar Association, asked for referrals for attorneys who specialized in bankruptcy fraud. At 8, she called legal aid, explained her situation, was told they didn't handle complex financial fraud cases. At 9, she reached out to a women's legal defense fund, left a detailed message. By 10, she had 2 appointments scheduled, both for the following week. Too late. She needed help now. So she did what she had always done, what her mother had taught her, what black women had always done when the system failed them. She helped herself. Elena went to the public library, used the free computers, began to research. She learned about bankruptcy fraud statutes, about fraudulent transfer laws, about the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. She learned about piercing the corporate veil, about alter ego doctrine, about how to prove that a LLC was just a shell for personal assets. She learned that if Marcus transferred assets to a LLC within 1 year of filing bankruptcy, with the intent to hinder, delay, or defraud creditors, that was fraud. She learned that if he controlled the LLC, if he used LLC assets for personal benefit, if he commingled funds, the court could pierce the veil and treat LLC assets as personal assets. She learned that bankruptcy fraud was a federal crime punishable by up to 5 years in prison. She printed everything, filled 3 folders with case law, with statutes, with precedents. She was not a lawyer, but she was an auditor, and she was motivated and had documentation that told a very clear story. At noon, she went home, made lunch for Jasmine, helped her with homework, listened to her talk about school, and did not mention the bankruptcy, the settlement offer, the $500. She carried it all inside, a weight that made her shoulders ache. But she smiled, she nodded, she was present. That afternoon she drove to the county clerk's office. Not to file, not to complain, but to search. The clerk, an older woman with kind eyes, helped her navigate the public records database. "What are you looking for, honey?" "LLC registrations. Williams Holdings LLC. Delaware Corporation, but registered to do business in this state." The clerk typed, nodded. "Found it. Registered. January 10th. Registered agent, Richard Blackwood." Elena's blood went cold. Richard Blackwood, Marcus attorney, the same attorney who was handling the bankruptcy. The same attorney who had sent the settlement offer. "That's interesting," Elena said, keeping her voice neutral. "Anything else?" "Property records, any properties purchased by Williams Holdings LLC in the last 6 months." The clerk typed again. One result. Condominium, Miami Beach. Purchase price, $3.2 million. Closing date, January 15th. Mortgage, none. Cash purchase, $3.2 million. Cash. And Marcus was claiming he had no liquid assets. Elena requested copies, paid the fees, and left with a folder full of evidence. That evening, she drove to Jasmine's school. She requested her academic records, her attendance history, her tuition payment history. She needed to document what was at stake, what Jasmine would lose if Elena failed. She went home, printed the record, added them to her file. And then, she did something that would change everything. She wrote a letter, not to Marcus, not to Richard Blackwood, but to the United States Trustee, the Department of Justice office that oversaw bankruptcy fraud. She wrote about the LLC, the Miami condo, the cash purchase, the timing. She wrote about the government contract, the salary, the discrepancy. She wrote about the settlement offer, the $500, the attempt to buy her silence. She attached copies of her evidence, her timeline, her findings. She cited specific statutes, specific laws, specific violations. She made 3 copies, 3 certified letters, 3 paper trails, and she mailed them all before the sun rose on day 7 of her investigation. If you want more stories where truth has a paper trail, like this video and subscribe before we go deeper, because Elena's letters were about to reach the right people. Day 6, Day 7, Day 8. Elena counted them like audit periods, each one bringing her closer to answers, closer to evidence, closer to the truth. But something was happening, something small, but measurable. On Day 6, Elena found the second LLC. She was searching SEC filings looking for related party transactions when she saw it. Logitech Solutions had paid consulting fees of $200,000 to an entity called MW Advisory Services LLC. MW, Marcus Williams. She pulled up the LLC registration, Nevada Corporation, registered February 1st, 2 weeks before the bankruptcy filing. Registered agent, again, Richard Blackwood. She cross-referenced with bank records, with public disclosures. MW Advisory had received 3 payments from Logitech, $200,000, February 1st, $150,000, March 1st, $100,000, April 1st. Total, $450,000 in 3 months for consulting services. What consulting services could a CEO who was supposedly in financial distress provide to his own company for $450,000? Elena opened her audit notebook, wrote, Finding number 2, suspicious related party transactions. Entity, MW Advisory Services LLC, Nevada. Payments, $450,000 over 3 months. Timing, pre- and post-bankruptcy filing. Purpose, consulting services, undefined. Conclusion, potential asset diversion through inflated consulting fees. That was 2 LLCs, 2 shell companies, 2 patterns. On Day 7, Elena found the private jet. She was searching FAA aircraft registration databases just on a hunch when she found it. N650MW, Gulfstream G650, registered to Williams Aviation Holdings LLC, another LLC, Delaware Corporation, registered December 15th, the year before. 3 months before the bankruptcy, she pulled up the purchase records. The jet had cost $65 million, financed through a complex web of leases and loans, but the beneficial owner was listed as Marcus Williams. She cross-referenced with Marcus' Instagram post. The caption, "New bird for the fleet." The date, March 10th, 5 days before the bankruptcy filing. He had taken delivery of a $65 million jet, 5 days before claiming he had no liquid assets. Elena felt rage, cold and sharp. But she didn't let it show. She opened her notebook, wrote, "Entity, Williams Aviation Holdings LZ, Delaware. Wasset, Stream, Gift, $5, $65 million. Delivery date, March 5th. Social media evidence. Instagram post, March 10th. Conclusion, intentional concealment of material asset. That was 3 LLCs, 3 shell companies, 3 patterns. On day 8, Elena received a call, not from a lawyer, not from the authorities, but from someone unexpected. Ms. Williams, this is Cynthia Reed. I was Marcus' executive assistant for 5 years. I saw what he's doing, and I can't stay silent anymore. Elena's heart raced. What did you see? I saw him transfer assets. I saw him create those LLCs. I saw him instruct Richard Blackwood to hide things. I have emails, internal memos, spreadsheets, everything. Why are you calling me now? There was a pause. Because I have a daughter too, Miss Williams, and if he can do this to you, he can do it to someone else. And I'm tired of being complicit. Elena felt tears burning, but she blinked them away. Can you meet me? Tomorrow? Yes. But be careful watching. If they know helping you, I understand. Thank you. Cynthia, you're doing the right thing. That was 4 sources, 3 LLCs, 1 whistleblower, and a growing case. Elena created a spreadsheet. Every LLC, every asset, every transfer. She cross-referenced dates, amounts, entities, 3 LLCs, 7 suspicious transfers, 12 documents, 1 whistleblower, 1 pattern. She photographed the spreadsheet, sent it to the U.S. trustee, sent it to the DOJ, sent it to the investigative journalist, whose contact she had found online. She was not just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for every mother who had been told she was too small, too poor, too powerless to fight back. And she was just getting started. Before the next part, remember this. Every like tells YouTube that stories about dignity still deserve a place. Because what happened next would force Marcus to make a choice. Marcus Williams did not panic. Panic was for people who did not have control. And Marcus Williams had always had control. But on April 20th, 8 days after Elena's investigation began, he received a call from Richard Blackwood. His voice, usually so measured, so calm, had an edge to it. Marcus, we have a situation. Define situation. Elena Williams. She's investigating. She's filed a complaint with the U.S. trustee. She's documenting everything. She's found the LLCs, and she's been talking to Cynthia. Marcus felt a flicker of irritation, nothing more. So? Let her file complaints. Let her document. We have the corporate structures. We have the legal separation. We have the bankruptcy stay. Marcus, she has an audit trail. She's showing that the LLCs are shell companies, that you control them, that you use them for personal assets. She's got Cynthia, who has internal emails, and she sent something to the press. Marcus was quiet for a moment. That's unfortunate, but not fatal. Send her a cease and desist. Threaten her with defamation. She'll back down. Marcus, I'm not sure that's legally advisable. Are you questioning my judgment? Richard? No. I'm just concerned about the optics. If this goes public, if the DOJ gets involved, it could affect the IPO. The board is already nervous about the government contract audit. We don't need a bankruptcy fraud investigation on top of that. Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. The IPO, the initial public offering. Logitech was planning to go public again. A secondary offering that would raise $500 million. If there was a fraud investigation, the SEC would delay. The investors would pull out. The deal would collapse. Fine. What do you suggest? We escalate. We file a motion to dismiss her claims. We request sanctions for frivolous litigation. We send her a settlement offer. With a non-disclosure agreement, we make her an offer she can't refuse. How much? $25,000. Lump sum. Full release. NDA she signed. She walks away. She doesn't. We bury her in legal fees. We drag this out for years. She can't afford that. Marcus nodded, even though Richard couldn't see him. Do it, but Richard, make sure the NDA is ironclad. I don't want her talking to the press, ever. It will be, trust me. That afternoon, Richard Blackwood's office sent out a letter, a cease and desist, demanding Elena stop her harassment and defamation, a motion to dismiss, claiming her allegations were frivolous and baseless, and a new settlement offer, $25,000, lump sum, full release, and a non-disclosure agreement that would prevent her from ever speaking about Marcus, the LLCs, the bankruptcy, or the settlement. The letter gave her 7 days to accept, or face aggressive legal countermeasures, 7 days, $25,000, and silence. But in his anger, in his desire to crush this rebellion, Marcus had made a critical error. He had put everything in writing, again, and this time, the words he chose would destroy him. Because the settlement LLCs, it mentioned Williams Holdings, LLC. It mentioned MW Advisory Services, LLC. It mentioned certain assets held in corporate entities, and it was signed by Richard Blackwood, the same Richard Blackwood who was the registered agent for all 3 LLCs. The same Richard Blackwood who had drafted the bankruptcy petition, claiming no knowledge of those LLCs. The same Richard Blackwood who was now, in writing, acknowledging their existence. Elena received the letter on April 23rd. She read it once, twice, 3 times, and then she laughed. A harsh, bitter sound that made Jasmine look up from her homework. "Mom, what's wrong?" Elena looked at her daughter and smiled. The first real smile in weeks. "Nothing's right. He just gave me everything I need." If this story stayed with you, leave a like and subscribe. There are more stories here about ordinary people who refuse to let money rewrite the truth. Because Elena was about to find the fatal flaw. The letter sat on Elena's kitchen table, under the lamplight, like a confession. She had read it so many times, the words were burned into her memory. Cease and desist all defamatory statements regarding Mr. Marcus Williams, including but not limited to allegations concerning Williams Holdings LLC and MW Advisory Services LLC. Williams Holdings LLC, MW Advisory Services LLC, in writing, acknowledged by Richard Blackwood, the same attorney who had signed the bankruptcy petition, which listed no interests in LLCs or corporate entities. The same attorney who had sent the settlement offer, claiming Marcus had no liquid assets. The same attorney who was now, in a legal document, admitting the existence of the very entities Marcus had sworn didn't exist. Elena picked up the phone, called the attorney she had finally found, a woman named Sarah Martinez, who specialized in bankruptcy fraud and white-collar crime. "Sarah, it's Elena. I need you to look at something, immediately." "What is it?" They sent a cease and desist, and in it, they acknowledged the LLCs. In writing. The same LLCs they said didn't exist in the bankruptcy petition. There was a pause on the other end, and Elena could hear Sarah's mind working, connecting dots, seeing the pattern. "Elena, send me everything. Scan it all. Email it to me. Right now. I will. And do not respond to their letter. Do not accept the settlement. Do not anything. Just wait. Let them hang themselves." Elena hung up, looked at Jasmine, and smiled. "They think they got me, baby. But they just gave me everything I need." That evening, Elena scanned every document. The bankruptcy petition, the LLC registrations, the property deeds, the cease and desist letter, the settlement offer, every signature, every date, every contradiction. She created a timeline, side by side, their claims versus her proof, their lies versus her truth. January 10th, Williams Holdings LLC registered. Richard Blackwood, registered agent. January 15th, Miami condo purchased. 3.2 million. Cash. February 1st, MW Advisory Services LLC, registered. Richard Blackwood, registered agent. February 1st, Logitech pays MW Advisory $200,000. Consulting fees. March 1st, Logitech pays MW Advisory $100,000. March 10th, Gulfstream G650s delivered $65 million. March 15th, bankruptcy filed. No liquid assets. No interest in LLCs. April 1st, Logitech pays MW Advisory $100,000. April 12th, settlement offer, $500 a month. April 20th, cease and desist at acknowledging LF. Cease and 7 days, 3 LLCs, 7 transfers, 12 documents, 1 pattern. And then she sent it all to Sarah Martinez, to the U.S. trustee, to the DOJ, to the investigative reporter, and she added one line at the bottom of the email. They claimed, in writing, that the LLCs didn't exist, attached proof that they did, and proof that they acknowledged them. Within an hour, Sarah called back. Elena, this is huge. This is not just a child support dispute anymore. This is bankruptcy fraud. This is evidence of intentional concealment. And the cease and desist is a smoking gun. What do? We wait for the hearing. And then, Elena hung up, looked at the audit notebook, her mother's handwriting, and whispered, truth got weight. But this time, survival would not be enough. This time, she wanted justice. And if you believe the truth should have consequences, like this video and subscribe. Because Elena Carter was about to get it. The hearing was scheduled for May 15th, 3 weeks after the cease and desist arrived. 3 weeks of silence, of waiting, of preparing. 3 weeks where Marcos lawyers sent threatening letters, demanded immediate acceptance of the settlement, promised maximum legal action. 3 weeks where Elena Williams said nothing, did nothing, waited, because Sarah Martinez had a plan. The hearing was not a child support hearing. Not yet. It was a bankruptcy fraud hearing to determine if Marcus had concealed assets, if he had committed perjury, if he had violated federal law, and Sarah had subpoenaed everything. Every LLC registration, every property deed, every bank transfer, every email between Marcus and Richard Blackwood, every SEC filing, every Instagram post, every internal memo from Cynthia, and most importantly, the cease and desist letter that acknowledged the LLCs existed. The courtroom was federal, serious, the kind where bankruptcy fraud was heard by judges who had seen it all, where justice was supposed to be blind, but was not deaf. Marcus did not attend. He sent Richard Blackwood and another expensive lawyer, who looked at Elena and Jasmine with thinly veiled contempt. Elena sat at the petitioner's table, not as petitioner technically, but as the whistleblower, the one exposing fraud. But Sarah had filed a motion to reopen the bankruptcy case, so technically they were all petitioners now. The judge, a man in his 60s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, called the case. United States Trustee versus Marcus Williams. In Re Chapter 7, Bankruptcy Case Number 24-10567. Ms. Martinez, you represent the U.S. Trustee and Ms. Williams? Yes, Your Honor. And I represent Elena Williams, who is the whistleblower in this matter, very well. Mr. Blackwood, you represent Mr. Williams. Richard stood, smooth, confident, the voice of someone who had won 100 cases like this. Yes, Your Honor. Along with my colleague, Mr. Davidson. Let's begin. Mr. Blackwood, explain to me why your client filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, claiming no liquid assets, while simultaneously purchasing a $65 million jet. Richard didn't flinch. Your Honor, the jet is owned by Williams Aviation Holdings LLC, a separate corporate entity. It is not a personal asset of Mr. Williams. Therefore, it is not disclosable in a personal bankruptcy petition. The judge raised an eyebrow. And who owns Williams Aviation Holdings LLC? It is a Delaware corporation with its own ownership structure. Meaning, you're not going to tell me. Your Honor, that information is protected by corporate privacy laws. The judge leaned back, steepled his fingers. Ms. Martinez, do you have evidence that Mr. Williams controls this LLC? Sarah stood, walked to the bench. Your Honor, these are FAA registration documents. The beneficial owner is listed as Marcus Williams. These are bank records, showing Mr. Williams personally guaranteed the financing. These are emails between Mr. Williams and the leasing company, where he refers to the jet as my aircraft. And this is an Instagram post by Mr. Williams, dated March 10th, where he states, and I quote, "New bird for the fleet." The judge reviewed the documents, his expression unreadable. Mr. Blackwood, your client posted on social media that the jet is his, but he didn't disclose it in bankruptcy. How do you explain that? Your Honor, social media is not a legal document. It's casual speech. It's not admissible as evidence of ownership. The judge's voice was getting colder, and the LLCs, Williams Holdings LLC, MW Advisory Services LLC, did your client disclose these? Richard hesitated. Your Honor, those are separate corporate entities. They are not required to be disclosed in a personal bankruptcy. Are you sure about that, Mr. Blackwood? Sarah interrupted. She handed up another folder. Your Honor, this is a cease and desist letter sent by Mr. Blackwood's office, dated April 20th. It states, and I quote, Cease all defamatory statements regarding Williams Holdings LLC and MW Advisory Services LLC. This letter acknowledges the existence of these entities, but the bankruptcy petition, filed March 15th, states, and I quote, "Debtor has no interest in any LLC, partnership, or corporate entity." Which is it, Mr. Blackwood? Do they exist, or don't they? Richard's composure was cracking. Your Honor, I would need to review. You don't need to review. It's right there. In your own letter, you acknowledged the LLCs after the bankruptcy was filed, which means you knew about them when you filed the petition, which means your client committed perjury. The judge banged his gavel. Mr. Blackwood, I am going to ask you one more time. Did your client Marcus Williams have an ownership interest in Williams Holdings LLC, MW Advisory Services LLC, and Williams Aviation Holdings LLC at the time he filed for bankruptcy? Richard opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Your Honor, I need to consult my client. You had 3 weeks to consult with your client. I want an answer. Now. Richard's face was white. Your Honor, I cannot answer that question without potentially incriminating my client. The courtroom went silent. The judge leaned forward. Let me be clear. Mr. Blackwood, your client is accused of bankruptcy fraud, of concealed assets, of perjury, and you just invoked the Fifth Amendment on his behalf. Do you understand what that means? Your Honor, it means I'm reopening this bankruptcy case. It means I'm referring this matter to the U.S. Attorney's Office for criminal prosecution. It means I'm ordering full forensic audit of all entities remotely connected to Mr. Williams. And it means I'm holding your client in contempt of this court. The judge banged his gavel again. Here is my ruling. 1. The Chapter 7 bankruptcy is dismissed with prejudice. 2. All assets, including those held in LLCs, are subject to seizure for child support arrears. 3. Mr. Williams is ordered to pay all past due child support, totaling $75,000. Within 34, Mr. Williams is ordered to pay Elena Williams legal fees and forensic audit costs. 5. This case is referred to the U.S. Attorney's Office for criminal prosecution of bankruptcy fraud and perjury. And 6. A hearing on contempt will be scheduled for June 1st. He looked at Richard. Mr. Blackwood, inform your client that if he wants to avoid prison, he will comply fully, immediately, and without further games. The judge banged his gavel again. Elena sat there, stunned. Her daughter was crying, silent tears of relief. Sarah was grinning. Elena, we won. We actually won. But Elena was not looking at Sarah. She was looking at the folder with the judge's ruling, the folder with the written justice, $75,000 in arrears, ordered paid, 3 LLCs pierced, 1 bankruptcy dismissed, and a billionaire facing criminal charges. This was not a check. This was not money. This was correction. This was truth, written in ink, signed by a judge, enforced by law. This was what her mother had taught her. Truth got weight. And if you believe justice should be written, not whispered, like this video and subscribe. Because Elena's story was not over yet. The ordinary life did not come back all at once. It came in pieces, in moments, in small victories that felt huge. The first piece came 3 days after the hearing. A letter from the court, but different this time. Not threatening, not demanding, confirming. It stated that Marcus had complied with the order, that $75,000 had been transferred to Elena's account, that all future child support would be automatically garnished from his salary, that the LLCs were under forensic audit, that the U.S. Attorney's Office was proceeding with criminal charges. It was signed by the court clerk, but included a note, handwritten, at the bottom. From Sarah. Elena, it's done. He paid. And Cynthia's testimony sealed the deal. Marcus is looking at 5 to 10 years, if convicted. He's trying to negotiate a plea deal now. But that's not your problem anymore. Rest now. Elena read it, folded it, put it in the audit notebook. She did not feel anger anymore. She felt tired, the kind of tired that comes after a long fight, after holding your breath for weeks, after carrying the weight of justice on your shoulders. Jasmine touched her arm. Mom, you okay? I'm tired, baby. You earned it. Rest now. But Elena could not rest yet, not completely, because there was more to do. The second piece came a week later. Sarah Martinez called. Elena, the forensic audit found more. 3 more LLCs, 2 offshore accounts, Cayman Islands, total value, $12 million, all undisclosed, all Hidden. Elena sat down. Hard 12 million? Yeah. And the U.S. attorney is adding charges. Tax evasion now. Wire fraud. Elena, what happens to the money? The court will order it to child support arrears, to legal fees, to whatever you're owed, and the rest will be forfeited to the government. Elena felt something loosen in her chest, and Jasmine gets her father back, eventually, after he serves his time. But she gets stability, she gets security, she gets justice. Elena did not feel like a hero. She felt like a mother, a daughter, an auditor, a woman who had done what she had to do to protect her family. But maybe that was enough. The third piece. Elena came home from work and found Jasmine and her friends in the living room. What are you doing? Study group. Mom, we're working on our math project, and I invited them for dinner. Is that okay? Elena looked around. The living room, which had felt so heavy for so long, felt light now. Jasmine was laughing. Her friends were laughing. The weight was gone. Of course it's okay. I'll order pizza. That night, after the girls left, after dinner, after Jasmine was in bed, Elena sat at the kitchen table with the audit notebook. She opened it one last time, looked at the LLC registrations, the property deeds, the cease and desist letter, the judge's ruling, the bank transfer confirmation, the criminal indictment. 12 years of marriage, documented. 12 years of lies, exposed. 12 years of being small, being invisible, being powerless, and now, written justice. She took out her mother's handwriting, the 3 words, and held it in her palm. We survived, Mama, we survived again. And this time, they had not just survived, they had won. Not with money, not with power, not with influence, but with paper, with truth, with documentation, with the quiet, stubborn, relentless courage of a mother who refused to let her daughter be erased. Elena closed the notebook, put it back in the drawer, and for the first time in months, she slept. Not the fitful, anxious sleep of someone waiting for the other shoe to drop, but the deep, peaceful sleep of someone who had fought and won and could finally rest. The next morning, she made breakfast for Jasmine, helped her get ready for school, listened to her talk about her friends, about her plans for high school, about her dream of becoming an accountant, like you. Mom, life was not perfect. The trauma would still linger. The legal battles would still continue. The criminal trial would still take months. Would still be a presence, even from prison. But they were home. They were together. They were safe. And no billionaire could take that away. Not anymore. If this story stayed with you, leave a like and subscribe. There are more stories here about ordinary people who refuse to let money rewrite the truth, because Elena Williams proved that one mother's audit skills could bring down a billionaire. Elena Williams' story, it is not rare. It is not an anomaly. It is the reality for millions of single mothers across this country, for Black mothers, for working mothers, for mothers who keep receipts, who document everything, who believe that if they just follow the rules, justice will prevail. Marcus Williams is not a monster. He is a businessman, a man who saw an opportunity to hide behind corporate structures, a man who thought that power meant he could rewrite his obligations, that wealth meant he could make people disappear, that influence meant he would never be held accountable. He was wrong, not because Elena Williams was special, not because she was smarter or stronger or braver than anyone else, but because she kept the receipts. She kept the LLC registrations. She kept the property deeds. She kept the cease and desist letter. She kept the bank statements. She kept the truth in writing, in ink, in documentation that could not be erased, could not be denied, could not be bought. And in the end, that was enough. Not to make her rich, not to make her famous, not to make her life easy, but to make her free. Free from the threat of poverty, free from the weight of unpaid support, free from the fear that power could erase her. This is the lesson of Elena Williams' story, that justice does not begin when the powerful feel mercy. It begins when the record is corrected that a mother does not need quiet money for a public harm. She needs public correction. That power is not wrong because it is rich. It is wrong when it makes the weak pay for its mistakes. That one receipt can stand between a family and the street. That no one should lose their child, their dignity, their future, because a billionaire needs a clean story. And that paper does not lie. So here is my question to you. the person watching this right now. If you received a settlement offer with a non-disclosure agreement offering you money to stay silent, while your child's father hid assets, what would you do? Would you take the money and sign? Would you fight, even if it cost you everything? And if this story stayed with you, if it made you think, if it made you believe that ordinary people can stand against extraordinary power, then please like this video, subscribe to this channel, share this story, because there are more Elena Williamses out there, fighting, documenting, surviving, and they need to know they are not alone. They need to know that paper does not lie. They need to know that truth, written down, dated, witnessed, can bring down a billionaire. And they need to know that one mother's courage can protect 1,000 families. Thank you for watching, thank you for caring, and thank you for believing that justice is worth fighting for, even when all you have is receipts.